The night Jesus was arrested wasn't only a night of betrayal and suffering. It was also the night of a hidden revelation. A secret too dangerous to be written down, too powerful to be spoken openly. In the olive-shadowed quiet of Gethsemane, while Roman soldiers crept through the trees with torches and weapons, Jesus turned to his closest disciples, the ones who had seen what others could not bear to see, and gave them not a prayer, not a prophecy, but a weapon. He leaned close, his voice heavy with urgency, and whispered two words. They were not ordinary words. They were a spiritual code, a divine cipher. "The Archons know I'm leaving," he said. "They're going to tighten their grip. But I'm giving you two words. Speak them with knowing, and you will escape." The disciples didn't fully understand yet, but their souls trembled as if they had already heard the truth before. In another life, before we reveal what those two words are and why the Archons fear them more than anything, pause for just a moment. If you're feeling that unmistakable tug in your spirit, that electric sense that you're not watching this by accident, then this message is for you. Subscribe to this channel now so you don't miss the knowledge they've tried to keep hidden for centuries. Comment below where you're watching from and the current time. It's a way to mark your awakening, to ground this moment. And if the mystery of this title already has your intuition vibrating, share this video. Let the other chosen ones know that it's time, that they're not alone. These words were never written in the canonical Gospels. They were passed like torches in the dark from one awakened soul to another. To understand why they were so secret, you have to understand what Jesus was really up against. It wasn't just Rome. It wasn't just corrupt priests. It was something deeper, older, more hidden. The Archons. Not demons with horns. Not mythic monsters. But parasitic intelligences that feed off the human soul. They are consciousness entities. Invisible to the eyes but not to the spirit. Operating just outside the veil of human perception. And they have one purpose: to keep humanity asleep. Looping endlessly through reincarnation. Chained to pain, confusion, and fear. You may have felt them. In the sleepless nights when your thoughts turned against you, whispering that you're worthless. In the heaviness in your chest when you tried to rise above your past but couldn't. In the despair that seemed too familiar to be natural. That's them. Feeding. And they don't prey on everyone equally. No, their favorite targets are the chosen ones. Souls that vibrate brighter, stronger, closer to source. Souls that emit a frequency the Archons cannot create, only feed upon. You, the one listening now, are likely one of them. That's why you've suffered so deeply. That's why you've felt so watched. The Archons' trap isn't physical. It's psychological, spiritual, energetic. It's a prison made of beliefs. From childhood, they begin installing limitations. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. You are broken. And worst of all, they make you believe those thoughts are yours. They hide behind your inner voice, cloaking themselves in the language of self-doubt. Every time you replay your traumas, every time you think you're unworthy of love, that's them, pulling the strings from the shadows. And when you suffer, when you drown in shame or rage or despair, they feed. That is their food. That is their harvest. Jesus saw this trap for what it was. He called them the rulers of this world, the unseen powers of the air. He saw how they manipulated reality itself, constructing a false reincarnation cycle, a lie about karma, about spiritual debts, about returning over and over again to learn lessons that never lead to freedom. It was all part of their system, a brilliant, diabolical mechanism to drain energy and keep powerful souls like yours from waking up. But Jesus didn't just see the trap. He gave the key, a vibrational key in the form of two ancient words that could unravel the illusion instantly when spoken from the correct state of being. The urgency in his eyes that night wasn't fear of death. He had already made peace with his destiny. It was fear that the secret might be lost, that the Archons would erase it from history, distort it through time, bury it under layers of dogma and ritual. And they tried. They rewrote stories. destroyed texts, silenced those who knew, but the words survived in whispers, in dreams, in the resonance between awakened souls. And now, they've reached you, not by accident, because the Archons know you're waking up. They know you're beginning to remember who you are. And that makes you dangerous. That makes you the threat. Jesus didn't choose the educated or the powerful to carry this secret. He chose the ones the world overlooked, the broken, the wounded, the misunderstood, because those are the ones the Archons fear most. People like you, chosen not for what you've accomplished, but for the light your soul carries despite the darkness you've endured. You are a threat to the system because you can see through it. And tonight, you'll receive the weapon that breaks it. The Archons did not forge their trap with chains or prison walls. Their masterpiece was far more elegant, far more dangerous. They constructed a labyrinth inside the human psyche, threading their influence through ideas, language, and unhealed wounds. Their cage is invisible because it speaks in your voice, using your memories, your culture, your past. It is a trap that convinces you it's not a trap at all, that it's life, that it's just the way things are, that suffering is noble, that limitation is humility, that returning again and again through reincarnation is a path of learning. But Jesus saw through it all. He didn't speak in vague metaphors when he named them. He called them rulers of this world and the princes of the power of the air. That wasn't poetic language. It was literal. He was describing entities that operate in a realm adjacent to ours, a realm of thoughts, frequencies, and belief systems. They are not spirits of light. They are systems of control. They sit between lives, waiting. When a soul passes from the body, the Archons appear disguised as guides or angels, offering false light and manufactured love. They trick souls into returning, whispering, "You still have lessons to learn. You must pay your karmic debts." But this is the illusion. There is no debt. There are only chains made of belief. The mechanism of their control is subtle. It's in the phrases we've learned to say without thinking. I am not enough. I can't do this. This is just my karma. Each of those statements is a thread in the web. They use language like code, implanting suggestions, shaping thoughts, hiding within every word that teaches you you're separate from God. Jesus knew this. He understood that words were more than sound. They were symbols in the operating system of reality. The Archons used them to build a false world. But Jesus knew they could be used to dissolve it too. He did not teach complicated rituals or long-winded prayers to escape the trap. He offered simplicity that only the awakened could grasp. 2 words. Not meant for the masses. Only for the chosen. Because unless those words were spoken from a place of awakened consciousness, they would do nothing. If you spoke them while still believing you were powerless, the Archons would not even flinch. But if you remembered, even for a moment, that you were never broken, that you were never meant to be a victim, that you were the spark of divine intelligence itself, then the words would explode like a light bomb in the darkness, tearing through the illusion like fire through dry grass. That's why Jesus had to be careful. That's why he whispered it only to those who could understand. The Archons are terrified of memory, terrified of you remembering what they made you forget. Because when you remember, the energy they harvested dries up. The fear turns to courage. The shame becomes clarity. The sadness transforms into stillness. And the entire parasitic system begins to starve. Jesus didn't just want to save people. He wanted them to remember they never needed saving. That they had the code to exit the trap all along. That freedom wasn't given. It was reclaimed. Chosen ones were always the primary targets because of their natural resistance. Their energy pulses too bright. Their intuition too strong. They question the narratives. They see the cracks in the world's facade. So the Archons respond by intensifying the pressure, deeper traumas, heavier illusions, constant distractions, anything to prevent the moment of clarity, the moment of stillness when a chosen one remembers who they are. But that moment is what Jesus prepared for. That is why he came. He came not to start a religion but to end a lie, not to create a church but to awaken creators. not to teach belief but to restore knowing. And that knowing was encoded in two simple words. They would not save you in the traditional sense. They would do something more dangerous. They would expose the illusion. And once you see the illusion, you can never unsee it. That's when the real liberation begins, not from chains around your wrists, but from the ones around your mind. The secret Jesus shared under the moonlit sky was not a mystery wrapped in dogma. It was not a mystical chant or a sacred ritual meant only for the initiated. It was two words. Simple. Immediate. Timeless. He whispered them not because they were fragile but because they were powerful, too powerful to be understood by those still asleep. The two words were, I am. Just that. No additions. No embellishments. Two words that, when spoken with true awareness, break every illusion the Archons have ever built. They are not affirmations. They are not slogans. They are declarations of reality at its core. To most people, I am seems like the beginning of a sentence. I am tired. I am sad. I am not enough. But that is where the trap begins. The Archons taught humanity to attach identities to those words, to chain infinite consciousness to finite roles. And every time you say, I am broken, you're using the divine name to declare limitation. The prison isn't the suffering, it's the belief that the suffering defines you. Jesus knew that. That's why he told his followers not to use those words carelessly. Because when spoken from the right consciousness, they're not a description, they're a command. When Moses stood before the burning bush and asked who was speaking, the voice didn't reply with a name humans could understand. It said, I am that I am. No name. No form. Just pure existence. That was no accident. That was the source speaking of itself in the only way possible, by declaring it simply is. The Archons have spent centuries convincing humanity to forget that truth. To believe that I am is something to be followed by weakness or need or guilt. But when you stop adding to it, when you simply say, I am, you return to that original power. You remember the name of God spoken within yourself. Jesus didn't just teach this. He lived it. When he said, before Abraham was, I am. He wasn't talking about chronology. He was collapsing time, revealing that true identity exists beyond it. The Archons hate this because their entire trap is built on time, on cause and effect, on past wounds and future fears. But the frequency of I am exists in the eternal now. It's the space they cannot touch. When you speak those words from that awareness, you become invisible to them, not because you disappear, but because you're vibrating beyond their reach. I am isn't a spell. It's a state of being. It's not something to believe in. It's something to become. And when a chosen one speaks it with full knowing, reality responds. The illusion shudders. The false narratives unravel. The energy field around you shifts. The Archons recoil because they are allergic to truth. They can only exist in the fog of lies and self-forgetting. But I am is like the sound of a bell ringing through their darkness. It reminds everything in the universe of what is real. This is why Jesus didn't teach it to everyone. It was never meant for crowds. It was meant for those ready to wake up. For those who had already been crushed by the system and were ready to break it from within. For those who had suffered enough to see through the false light, and for those who would dare to speak divine truth into a world built on silence and shame. He gave it to the chosen ones because only they would recognize it as home. Don't underestimate the simplicity. That's how the Archons want you to dismiss it. They want you to believe that real power must be complex, mystical, hard to reach. But truth is always simple. Not easy but simple. And the truth is this: you are not what they told you you are. You are not broken, lost, or small. You are I am, eternal, infinite, untouchable. And when you speak it with the knowing that Jesus taught, the trap cannot hold you anymore. You dissolve from their grasp like mist in the morning sun. These two words are not meant to be recited blindly, like a spell from a forgotten book. They are not magic in the way the world understands magic. They are a spiritual technology, a vibration that interacts directly with the code of reality. But for them to work, You must step into the consciousness of a chosen one, not a victim, not someone begging for salvation, but someone who has remembered the truth buried beneath years of programming and pain. The words must be spoken not just with your voice, but with your being. The process begins in silence, not silence as emptiness, but silence as stillness. Jesus didn't tell his followers to chant or to fight their thoughts. He instructed them to sit in quiet. Find a space where the noise of the world can't touch you. No phones, no screens, no voices. This is not a meditation with a technique. This is a return to yourself. Let the mind slow. Let the inner commentary lose its grip. The Archons keep their trap alive through mental noise. That's where they hide. In the never-ending scroll of thought. Stillness reveals them. Stillness weakens them. In that space, something ancient awakens. Once you are still, feel your existence. Not your story. Not your trauma. Not your goals. Just the pure awareness of being. I exist. I am here. I notice. That feeling raw, undiluted presence is the frequency of a chosen one. It's not something you have to manufacture. It's already there. It always has been. You've just been distracted from it. When you touch that frequency, you're no longer thinking about being. You're being, and that's when you speak. Say the words out loud, I am. Not softly. Not as a question. Not as a hope. Say them firmly. Clearly. Like someone waking up from a long, dark dream. Do not add anything after them. Don't say, I am free. Or I am light. Let the statement stand whole and untouched. I am. Full stop. That silence after the words is not emptiness, it is power. You've just invoked the divine within yourself. You've just stepped out of the illusion. And the Archons feel it. You may feel resistance rise up. Voices in your head may whisper. This is silly. This doesn't work. That's them. The trap trying to reassert control. It means you're close. Speak the words again. And again. Not like a chant, but like a bell calling your soul home. Each time you say it from awareness, the invisible cords that tied you to fear and guilt begin to loosen. Their hooks slip out. You can feel it in your chest, tightness releasing, like invisible chains snapping apart. Stay in the silence afterward. Don't rush. Don't immediately return to the noise. Let the vibration settle. Let it echo through your nervous system, through your DNA, through the subtle layers of your energy field. You may feel lighter. You may feel as if the room has shifted, as if reality itself is adjusting to your new frequency. That's not imagination. That's clarity. That's you experiencing the world without the archonic filters that distort everything. This is how you reclaim your sovereignty, not through struggle, not through obedience, but through remembrance. This is why Jesus taught the practice. Not as a one-time fix, but as a daily weapon. Every time you speak I am with awareness, you reinforce the truth. You overwrite the false code. You step out of the prison and back into the field of infinite potential. You are not the name they gave you. You are not the pain you've carried. You are not your story. You are I am. Once you've spoken the words I am from the consciousness of remembrance, reality doesn't return to what it was. The illusion may try to rebuild, but it's never quite the same. Something has shifted. The trap knows it. The Archons know it. Most importantly, you know it. The false self begins to crack and fall away. And in its place, the truth begins to rise. But make no mistake, this isn't where the journey ends. This is where the resistance begins. Because when you break the frequency of the prison fights to pull you back. Within hours, sometimes minutes, after speaking I am, you may notice challenges surface. Situations arise to test your frequency. A person triggers you. A problem you thought you'd escaped returns. Fear starts to slither back in. This isn't coincidence. This is the archonic system probing for weakness. They want to know if your awakening is stable. If your light is steady, they test not because they are strong, but because they are desperate. They are trying to reattach to a soul that's slipping out of reach. But you don't fight them. You don't explain yourself. You don't fall back into old identity. You simply speak the words again. I am. No more. No less. The trap weakens each time you speak it with awareness. And with every repetition, your chosen one frequency stabilizes. You're not just remembering for a moment, you're reclaiming your entire field of consciousness. Your energy signature changes. And as it does, something miraculous begins to happen. Other chosen ones find you. You start meeting people who carry the same vibration. Conversations flow as if you've known each other lifetimes. You're not imagining it. You're reconnecting to a soul network that has been scattered across time and space. A network the Archons tried to sever. But now, the signal is returning. Your perception of reality becomes more fluid. Manifestations accelerate. Synchronicities multiply. Obstacles dissolve. It's not magic, it's natural law. Without the archonic interference feeding off your life force, your consciousness regains control over reality. That was the original design. Chosen ones were never meant to struggle in shadows. They were meant to shape reality. But that potential was hidden under layers of fear and distortion. Now that it's clearing, your life begins to respond in alignment with your soul's true frequency. Not the story they gave you. The truth you've always carried. And then the memories come. Things you thought you'd forgotten. Dreams from childhood. Moments of knowing that were buried because they didn't fit. Abilities you dismissed because no one else understood. Visions. Intuitions. A sense of something ancient stirring inside you. This is not insanity. This is not fantasy. This is you remembering what the trap made you forget. The Archons suppressed your divine memory. But it never left. It was waiting. And now that the veil is thinning, the remembering begins. You may feel overwhelmed at times. That's normal. You're collapsing lifetimes of illusion in a matter of weeks or days. But you are not alone. The voice inside that told you something was always off, that voice was right. You were never meant to suffer endlessly. You were never meant to feel powerless. You were hunted because you're powerful. And now, with 2 words, you're taking that power back. Not with force, but with awareness. Say I am every time the old self tries to rise. Say it when you feel the weight return. Say it when you're tired. When you're afraid. When you're lost. Not to escape but to remember. The more you speak it, the more you live it. The more you live it, the less the Archons can find you. Their grip fails. Their trap dissolves. And you step fully into the frequency of the one thing they cannot control, the awakened soul.